making movies is hard.
Making movies is hard.
Welcome. This is the podcast about the struggle of being an independent filmmaker. I'm Alrik the founding host of the podcast, and I'm a sci-fi horror filmmaker, and my first feature film, The Alternate, is playing in Miami this weekend, I believe, if I have that right. And the movie will be coming out to the masses later this year.
I'm Liz Manischel. I'm a writer, director, producer who has made 2 features, Bread and Butter and Speed of Life, currently on Showtime, and I'm in development on about 5 more. I'm a distribution consultant who does sales, and I used to manage Sundance's creative distribution initiative.
This week, we welcome writer-director Meg Swertlow onto the show to talk about how she made the switch from writer to filmmaker, how she got started making her first shorts, and her process as a writer. After that, Liz and I talk about an article from Buzzfeed called, "Look at What We're Doing with Your Money, You Dick," how Peter Thiel backed an anti-woke film festival. And then we answer some listener questions. But first, Liz, how are you doing today?
Oh, I forgot to think about what I should say in this segment. I'm doing well. We're watching Oscar movies. We saw The Worst Person in the World last Friday at Alamo Drafthouse. It was heaven. And then we saw Nightmare Alley. What else? We're starting to rate our treatment. The thing that I think I should talk about is that I didn't think I would out myself, but I am helping the Film Collaborative with this very, very big deal thing called the Distributor report card, and it's coming out on Friday.
Whoa.
Yeah, I was thinking
cool.
I'd be pretty anonymous, but who am I kidding? I love to pretend that I am an advocate for filmmakers in distribution, and the whole point of it is we're doing report cards on distributors from filmmakers.
Oh, wow. So what's the process? You have a filmmaker who will rate a distributor and then go and out them publicly, or it's all anonymous, or what's the deal?
The Film Collaborative did interviews with filmmakers, at least 10 per distribution company. And they asked each filmmaker the same question about that distributor. And it's essentially a Zagat guide to a distribution company. So it's fueled by quotations from the filmmakers. And then we redact any identifying element to their quotation so that every filmmaker feels comfortable saying exactly what they want to say about that distributor. We are releasing it this Friday, and if anyone's interested, they should go to the Film Collaborative's website to check it out, and maybe we'll share the link on the socials.
Awesome.
Yeah. What about you? What your life? Tell me your life.
I'm also watching all the Oscar movies. I've gotten all the best pictures done. Although I only watch an hour of Drive My Car because, my God almighty. I mean, I don't know what people see about this movie. It's so
I'm dying to see that one. Then I'm going to love it. I'm going to love it then. You're basically saying I love it.
It's 3 hours long.
Perfect.
First off. So that's already okay, you better have a damn good movie if I'm going to watch it for 3 hours. The first 40 minutes, that's when the opening credits happen, is after 40 minutes. So I think already that gives you an idea of what we're talking about here. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood had a lot of driving shots. Just Brad Pitt driving around LA for countless minutes upon minutes of screen time. But yeah, this thing, it does it.
I mean, it's called Drive My Car.
But he's not even being driven yet. He's driving the car himself.
Whoa, Alrik, spoiler alert. Spoiler.
Oh my God. It's I don't know, dude. And then by the time you get to the Drive My Car part, you're yeah, okay, she's gonna drive his car, obviously, because that's what the movie's called. It's I don't know. I'm not a fan. I haven't finished it yet because I was it's so pretentious, and it's so you think in a pretentious movie like this that at least the cinematography would be good, but it's not that great. It's it's very, very minimalist and very whatever. And just so, I mean, I don't know. Maybe this movie is amazing and I just don't, I don't get it. I read all these reviews, people saying how great it is. And I'm is it really great? Because I don't know if it's great. So far, it's not great at all, but maybe it is great. And then I think it's amusing.
Well, as you describe this, I've not seen the movie yet. I feel like I'm digging my heels in about whether I would like it or not. I'm convinced that I would love it.
You'll probably love it. Everyone loves it. Everyone loves this movie. It's just like everyone loved Nomadland. It's okay, yeah.
Oh, I love Nomadland. Yeah,
exactly. I just, it's not my cup of tea. I talked to my friends, and they're yeah, it's very Japanese. It's very Japanese filmmaking. I'm okay. All right, fair enough. Like that's like the way you explain it. It's like slow and barely nothing happens and no one says anything. Okay, sure. It's all internal. Got it. I mean, I'll give it this. There was like the thing that was so frustrating is because there is an interesting thing happening in the story in the beginning.
Don't give it away because I want to see it.
Okay, I can't say anymore because it'll give it away.
I'm so sorry. I don't mean to steal your thunder there.
It's okay. I didn't mean to go off on Drive My Car. I mean, you know, I still have to watch. I'm going to watch the rest of the movie. I will watch it. But I mean, we watched that for an hour and then we were upset. And then the next night we watched Belfast and then we loved it. Belfast was great. Love Belfast.
It's probably next for us. So we'll get there.
And then we watched Coda last night and we loved that too. That was also great.
Yeah, Coda was great. I mean, it was very formulaic. See, this is where we diverge. Very charming, enjoyed the experience, but then when you think about it, you're like, I could have predicted this entire movie. I could have predicted it from frame one.
But feel good movies, who cares? It's not about predictions. It's about pulling at the heartstrings and getting those tears squirting out of your eyeballs. You know, Beth.
Well, that's why I like King Richard. King Richard is feel good. I don't think, but it doesn't feel formulaic because I mean, whatever, it's based on.
It's still formulaic. There is formulaic. They're all formulaic. All movies follow a formula. Maybe not Drive My Car. It just follows a formula of car shots and practicing lines in a car for hours upon hours.
They're all a manipulation. Yes.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, I also like King Richard too. I thought that was really good.
It was great. I love that movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is the most Oscar movies I've ever watched. Like I usually watch half of the Best Picture nominees or whatever. But to watch all but like 20 minutes of West Side Story right now because we're still just slogging through it. Not a big fan, I have to say. Did you watch it?
No, I'm very, very nervous about watching it because the original I cried throughout the entire original movie.
The original's amazing. I mean, I watch the original probably once a year with my wife and, you know, it's great. And, you know, what Steven Spielberg has done is decided to try to put as many camera tricks and as many like high budget like camera techniques and like, you know, filmmaking techniques into this movie to make it seem cool and different and better. But it's not. It's like a lame, like these people can't even dance. They can barely dance like the dancers from the original. It's like, what's happening here? Like, you're just like doing swooping shots over their heads. Like, you're just showing off all your filmmaking know-how, but you're not actually telling a good story. You're barely telling the story that is already good well. I don't know. And besides, the two leads on the Jet side are like, I mean, you couldn't have found... Like Bread would have been better than them. They're just so flat. Oh my God. But Amy, you can't really beat Russ Tamblyn. Anyways.
I know. I was just about to say, like Dr. Jacoby from Twin Peaks, you know, Russ Tamblyn is hero in that first movie. I love him.
I know. He's amazing. I mean, and he's one of the best dancers of all time, right? So like, I guess you're trying to compare like some modern day schmo to him. It's like, you know, it's not fair, but that's what it is. So you should have found a better dancer and like maybe like made that the focus and then the acting secondary, but I don't know, but the acting's not even, anyways.
We have to get over this.
We got to move on. Anyways, besides being frustrated and enjoying watching Oscar movies, yeah, more of the same for me, like working on scripts. I wrote two more pages on my script.
There you go. See? Yeah.
If I get 2 pages a week, I'll eventually have a movie done in about, you know, a year and a half. So... yeah, we'll see how that goes. That
is not that bad. Amy and I have been working for certainly over a year, and we're not there yet, so it'll be fine.
Yeah. And then, you know, continuing working on the script process with some other writers, and had a meeting last week, which was really great, where they say like, okay, well, there was the original concept, like I tweaked it one more time, and like I'm just every time that this writer tweaks the idea a little bit, I just love it even more. So I'm excited to see how that project comes together. Yeah, and no offense to anybody out there who loves these movies. I'm not saying like they're not, you can love them and I can not like them, and that's what makes movie watching great. So anyways, I'd love to hear what people think. I'm probably just the most wrong about Drive My Car in the whole world, but I don't know. I'll watch it and see, but geez Louise, I hope it doesn't win. It can win Best Foreign, but just not Best Picture. I mean, okay. Anyways. You know, one thing that you should do, despite my rambling, is go to patreon.com, www.patreon.com/MMIH podcast, and check out what we have going on there. We're trying to do some more fun things with Patreon. We're putting our meetings, our weekly meetings on there from time to time if it's not boring as all hell for people to listen to. I haven't done a video in a while, but I'll do more. There's just a lot of fun things on our Patreon, so check it out, like a little behind the scenes on the podcast, and you can support us. That's basically the only way that the podcast keeps going. The other thing that you can do is check out Gembox.io. They are a new royalty-free music and sound effects company with an emphasis on high-quality cinematic cues. Their composers have worked on soundtracks for Hollywood-level films, working with directors like Michael Bay, Martin Scorsese, or brands like DJI. You know, it's like incredible the level of music you get on this place. Use our MMIH code for a 20% discount off of Gembox. All caps, MMIH, all caps, to get a discount on Gembox.io today. But without any more further delay, here's our chat with Meg Swertlow. We're with Meg Swertlow. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Give us your elevator pitch for your short, Watcher.
Watcher is about an older woman who is home alone, trying to have a nice night alone when an unwelcome intruder intrudes.
How many days did you shoot?
That was one day. Overnight. Actually, it was overnight. It was March 14th through March 15th, 2020. So it was quite a day to shoot something since the stay-at-home order was March 15th.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It was,
what was the rough budget of the short, if you can say?
Yeah, I mean, like, nobody cares. So 2,000 or 3,000. I'm not like, no company's going to come find me. It was like 2,000 or 3,000. It was very, very minimal.
How did you come up with the idea?
So I'm from Los Angeles and I don't have much money, and I have a house that my mother lives in. And so I knew I had a location. And so I tend to be very inspired by locations. So I had this like nice house and I thought, like, what could I film here? And then the house is nice. So I needed to figure out someone who could be in the house. And I have my friend Diane Behrens, and I wanted to utilize her. So I came up with, someone who could live in the house and a story around that. And also my mom, someone had come in when we were gone and someone had robbed or burglarized, I guess, my mother and stole all her jewelry. And I thought about that and an older woman, and, that we think of older women as frail creatures, I guess. And kind of the idea of, what if they're not?
And then how long did you spend working on the film from the idea to it being released?
So like the idea, honestly, like 2 weeks, I was just like, I'm going to shoot something. I decided in December 2019 that I was going to direct, and that I wanted to direct a proof of concept for my feature screenplay called No Overnight Parking. And my mentor, Mary Lou Belli, said, why don't you shoot some short films like on your phone or whatever? And I knew I had a location. I knew I had a DP. I didn't have a story yet. And I just, about 2 weeks before, it was very fast. 2 weeks before I wrote something, it probably took like 2 hours to write that. And so that was beginning of March 2020. And then we didn't finish until election day, November 3rd, I guess, of 2020. That's when we finished sound on it. And so we were in the can on November 30th, 2020. So it took some time, but that was because our editor, his Avid system went away and then he got it back. So
compared to all the other projects you've made, how difficult was this one?
Comparatively, like now, after I shot my proof of concept last weekend, like easy breezy. But I didn't know because I'd only shot one thing before and it took 6 hours and it was a crew of one person. So comparatively, I mean, it was difficult to shoot something when impending doom seemed looming and no one knew what was going on. And it was like a very scary time. But I think the fact that for 15 hours that day, we didn't have to be worried that like it was the end of the world was actually, it was pretty nice. So
I'm just really interested to hear like how you came into filmmaking, because you mentioned that this was pretty much one of the first things that you ever shot, and that you kind of decided that you wanted to direct, before making the short film. So before that, had you been writing a lot? Like where were you at in your journey before you shot this movie?
So in 2016, I decided like I seem to just jump into things. Like I'm a screenwriter now. So I had I started writing one page a day in September 2016. And then immediately I decided I was going to apply to USC Film School. And I was like, I'm applying to USC Film School. I have 30 pages of screenplay. And I did not get into USC Film School for the MFA program, but I was accepted into their advanced screenwriting summer program. So I started just in September 2016, and I just have basically been writing ever since then. And then I've written a bunch of screenplays and pilots, and they've done well in some of the competitions and gotten awards and whatnot. And then in 2018, I got the Hedgebrook screenwriting mentorship, and that was a 10-day, all expenses paid screenwriting lab with 5 other women on an island off the coast of Seattle. And kind of that was one of the things where I was like, this is really cool. Maybe I'm good at this. And those scripts led me to film festivals, and watching other films at film festivals, I really noticed, especially in horror, that there weren't a significant amount of women. And there certainly are more now. But I kind of just decided, I can do this probably. And so in October, sorry, this is all long-winded. In October 2019, I went to the Nightmares Film Festival. I got second runner-up with my script, No Overnight Parking. And kind of once I left there, I was like, I have a story to tell. I've been studying Hollywood and movies my entire life. Why don't I just start directing? And kind of once I did that, it's been like off to the races. So I did my 7th short film over the weekend. So
I'm curious what came before screenwriting. Like, what was it that led to that decision of jumping into the industry? Was it another industry job that was prior to that, or is it something completely different?
So as I said, I'm from Los Angeles. Both of my parents are entertainment journalists. So I've just been around the industry my entire life. And my friends growing up were like the daughter of Brandon Tartikoff, who ran NBC and Paramount. And so I wasn't a rich person, but I was around a lot of power, a lot of famous people, and a lot of clout in the industry. So I watched it. And then I fell into entertainment journalism as well. When I was 26, I got a job at Entertainment Tonight. I wanted to be there for a year. I was there for 4 years. And then I worked for the paparazzi for 3 years. Sorry, I was not a paparazzo, but I wrote stories from the photos we got. And I worked at E! News as well. So I was an entertainment journalist for a decade. But meanwhile, during all that, I started doing improv when I was 22. My background is also theater. So I studied theater at Hamilton College and just performed. And when I was 22, I got heavily into the improv comedy scene, and I performed. And then I started writing jokes, and I started doing a one-woman show. And the one-woman show is called The Irresponsible Girl's Guide to Dating, because I decided to go on a date with anyone who asked me for a year. And I know, I see your eyebrows raised. I know, it was a real night. Well, you know what? It was. And if you go on Tinder, I guess it wasn't Tinder back then. It was like Match or whatever. But what's the other one that's free? The free one, the one I don't want to pay for anything.
Okay, Cupid. I do remember that.
Okay, Cupid.
So it's like, look, anyone can go on a date at any time, I believe. It just depends how low your standards are. And my standards were extremely low at the time. And if anyone asked me, even if I wasn't interested, I would go on a date for an experiment, which is actually not a good thing. It's like very selfish and using people. But that's where I was at that point in my life. I will use you for comedy. Don't feel that way anymore. And, I think that was probably wrong and unethical, but it was a long time ago. So I started writing jokes and stand-up, and then I turned it into a one-woman show. And that was actually my first pilot, The Irresponsible Girl's Guide to Dating, which I also made a feature. So I kind of just I really believe you just take steps, and I don't know where I'm going. And then it's now I'm directing, but I realize all the steps before me led me to where I am. So it really doesn't feel like, oh, I did a crazy zigzag. It's I'm taking the next indicated action, the next indicated action, the next indicated action. They all make sense when I look behind, but they didn't necessarily at the time. So that's kind of how I don't know. It's is that how I got to where I am now?
It's a good answer, whether it's true or not. It was great.
It's definitely true.
So, since you made The Watcher, you've made 5 other short films, so you've done 6 since the pandemic has started.
Yeah.
Why so many? Why so fast?
Why not? Other than it's crazy making, but I'm an apartment manager. I don't have anything to do other than deal with people yelling at me. which is actually sad, but true. I have the time. As I said, like in November of 2019, I was like, I'm going to make No Overnight Parking a feature film. I'm not going to learn unless I do. So even though some of the shorts are 2 minutes long, but for one of them, Jenny, it's 2 minutes long, but my husband and I filmed it 4 overnights, which was not awesome when the set is your bedroom, much to my husband's dismay. But I wanted to, it's like it was for the Roger Corman challenge. You had to do it on your phone. You had to do it with the people you are quarantining with. You had to do it in the location you were quarantining and the lights that you have. So I was like, that's a challenge. So why don't I do it? I thought it was like, oh, that's too much work. Well, I have the time and I want to learn and I have a real hunger to learn more. So with each project, I have been learning more and they've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger because I want to direct. I want to get paid one day to direct and I want to do a feature film. And so I just do it, just learn. So, and now I can say in a little bit over 2 years, I've directed 7 short films and I've been in a lot of like big horror film festivals and I get to know a lot of people. And I know that from my screenwriting because I've met all these people in all these horror film festivals and I had relationships with them. So when I want to play with my shorts, they've gotten into those film festivals, not all of them, and I've gotten rejected by more than I've gotten into, but that way, like I have an established voice. So that's kind of why I've been doing it.
Can you talk a little bit about Mary Lou? I never knew how to pronounce her name. You said Belli, or I thought it was Belly, but whatever works.
It's not Belly, but I always think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mary Lou. She's fantastic.
I weirdly enough, we're Facebook friends, but I have no idea who she is. And I just see all these amazing updates about TV. She's just like a prolific TV director.
She's so amazing. And she's my size. I'm 5 foot, like, she might be even smaller than I am. I'm 5'1". And
I'm 5 feet. This is just making me feel better about life.
She's a tiny wonder.
But how did you connect with her? Like, how did that happen, that relationship?
Quite literally, like, she lives across the street from my mom. So, like, I mean, that's the thing. It's like being from LA, like, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't like do anything that so great that's how she met me. It's like I grew up and I saw her kids grow up. She lives directly across the street from my mother. So she knew a lot about what I had been doing in general. And I called her in November of 2019 and I was like, do you think it's crazy if I start directing? And she said, for most people, I would say, do not do this. For you, go for it. And so, I mean, that's the thing is like other people who know more believing in me help me believe in me. And it still does. Like I called her on Monday to say like, this is how it went. And I've sent her photos and she's the reason I got the casting director I did for No Overnight Parking, the proof of concept. She called someone. And so she's really just like, I've gone over my shot listing with her and just kind of like, if you work hard and if you ask for help, I have found that people, and not everyone at all, that people will help you if you have the drive. And I certainly don't have the knowledge. I have more knowledge than I did, but people respect a drive and a thirst for knowledge. That's what I found. And people have really, really, really helped me because I've said, I want to do this thing that's hard. And that's my experience thus far.
And then going back to the shorts, like how do you fund all these? Are they all like, kind of low budget between $2,000 and $3,000 or less or more? Like how is that coming about?
I mean, so one of them was $36. Like, cool. And that played at Fright Fest UK. And that's like the biggest one in the UK.
Congratulations.
And thanks. Yeah, it was pretty cool. The actor in it, and he edited it. I mean, truly it has to do with like, who are your friends and making friends with people. I mean, these people were already my friends and saying, hey, do you want to do this thing? So my first short was called Next to You. That is on YouTube because I don't have the music rights to it. So I just put it on YouTube. And I asked Miles to be in it. And Miles has a bit of a following. He's like a hunky Australian. And he asked his friend who has a Red camera. And it turns out the friend worked in a camera house. So he brought all these lights. I didn't know I was going to shoot on my cell phone, but he brought all these lights. So we shot this short and then I finished it. And then like a week later, I applied to the Ryan Murphy Half Initiative. And then I was a finalist in that with that short, which cost $160 because basically people helped. They stepped up. They brought, it's like it cost $60 for pizza and then $100 or something for editing. So certainly more at the beginning, I feel like maybe that's not true, that people would just like help me. But so certain ones, like the beginning ones, did not cost a lot of money. The other ones that I've done are more towards like 7,000, 8,000, and no overnight parking was a lot more. And I still don't know how much it costs and how much it's gonna cost. But some of it's my money, my husband's. He's an electrician, so we're only on his salary, but he pays for some of it. I'm an apartment manager and I don't get paid to do that. So I provide a home for us. So some of it's us. Some of it's like my mom gave me $1,000 for something, like his parents gave me $1,000. And so for the bigger project, no overnight parking, we've been fundraising with different people. And a friend of mine gave me $5,000, like, because she believes in me. I think because now that I have all these shorts, people are believing in me and want to help me. So that's part of it.
So you decide to make this feature, and a lot of the people who listen to the show are at that stage where they listen to kind of to gather up the gumption to go forward with their own first feature or second feature or whatever it is. What was the first step you took to actualize this feature development process for yourself?
I called someone I grew up with, Noah Rosenthal, and he's a DP. And I had run into him at a high school event. Noah's dad is a man named Rick Rosenthal, who directed Halloween 2 and a bunch of other movies. And his mom is this woman, Nancy Stevens, who's like in all the Halloween movies. She's a nurse. I don't know. So, I know he has like a deep, deep love of horror. And I know he's really talented and has a lot more experience than I did. And I said, hey, I've decided I want to direct this proof of concept for no overnight parking. Are you interested? And he's like, yeah, I'm interested. And that was in December of 2019. And we met. Actually, I got into a horrible car accident the first time I was trying to meet with him, but I still tried to meet with him. And he was like, your car has been destroyed. So we met later. And basically I just asked him, do you want to work on this? And he said, yeah, if I have time. And what happened for me is that I put that intention out there, and I applied to ISA's Shoot Your Sizzle, which is now ISA's International Screenwriters Association Shoot Your Short contest. And then I got an email in February 2020 that said, congratulations, you won. And so I got money, I got a camera, I got producers. That was certainly part of it. It's like I had $5,000. I had some people who wanted to make this happen, and a bunch of other prizes. And so that's kind of how and that's a very, very lucky thing. I actually didn't remember that I had applied to it, to be perfectly honest. And so when I got the You're a Grand Prize winner, I did write back, is this a joke? Because I applied to so many things, but kind of like amassing a team and amassing people who believe in you. And I just kept thinking like, I'm going to get the money. I have no idea how, like even from the jump, I just said, I have no idea how I'm going to get this money, but I'm going to get it. And I think having that can-do attitude, I filmed it last weekend. So
I guess part of that is, why did you decide to shoot a proof of concept versus fundraising for the feature directly? And what went into that decision to do the proof of concept?
Because I'd never directed anything, and I want experience. So for me, it's that I wasn't equipped. To me, I don't think that I had the experience or knowledge, and hopefully I do now, but I don't even know. But that I believe that you should get training, that you should get more information. And I wanted to start shooting things in order to prove to myself and to prove to other people that I could do this feature. Yeah. I
think it's just the timeline that's confusing, right? Because you applied, and then in the interim of waiting to hear back, it sounds like you shot like 5 shorts.
So that's what what happened is the pandemic happened. Yeah. So, that's what happened, is that I couldn't shoot anything for a long time. And I also got hired to write a feature film. So that's just how the timeline happened, that we were supposed to maybe shoot in April of 2020. And basically while I waited and while I couldn't do that much, I shot all these other things. And then also what happened was I was supposed to shoot this in October of 2021. And 3 days before, we had worked for months on it. And 3 days before the shoot, our free location got yanked. And our actress is a very busy person, and she was not able to do it until the first week of February. So instead of just doing it without her, like getting her is such a big deal that we were willing to wait in order to get her, because I believe having her involved is quite a game changer. Anyway, all that to say is I went out with one intention, and then a global pandemic happened and sort of stopped the world. And so I made do, and I made experiences so that I could have more knowledge. And I'm so glad I waited. It was a really hard shoot. And if I had tried, I just could have never done what I did 2 years ago. I know so much more.
So now that you have the proof of concept shot and you're like editing on it and you're like getting ready to have it be completed, what's the strategy? Like, are you going to hit film festivals with it and try to, gain notoriety that way? Or are you going to just keep it private and share it with people to directly to equity investors? Like, what's your process?
I mean, I think I can do both. So I don't think that I have to reinvent anything. There's a short called Koreatown Ghost Story, and Teddy Tenenbaum and Minsun Park did that with Margaret Cho. And I watched them at the film festivals, and I watched them crush it at the film festivals. And I just asked how they got Margaret Cho and what they did. And then I did exactly what they did. So, their short just got bought by, and I'm forgetting his name, but he's the producer of the Fast and the Furious movies. And then they got hired to write the feature. And so I'm like, well, if they did it, why can't I do it? So that's kind of my goal, is to have this and to get this in all the top horror film festivals, and then also get it out to people who can give me money to make it and to buy it.
Well, let's talk about some of the other things that you're doing. So you go to your website, you have Indiana Janes, you have the Rejected podcast. What are these things? Tell everyone all about them.
So Indiana Janes is a writing duo that I have with one of my best friends, Alicia Gaddis, and we got hired by Colleen Marshall of Four Leaf Productions to write a rom-com. So I'm writing a rom-com, and we're in the last stages of edits before we take it out to buyers. So I was actually in a meeting getting line notes on that right before this. And yeah, so it's just, we call ourselves Indiana Janes because it's our it's our writing duo. Her daughter is named Indiana, and I thought it was a cute name. And then we are hopefully eventually the goal is to do a podcast called Rejected, where we just interview people about rejections and how that kind of bolstered them or how it affected them. Because to me, a lot of the times when I've been rejected, it's fortunately, the thing that makes me be like, fuck you, I'm going to show you what I can do. And that's kind of sometimes lights the fire underneath me of, it's people believing in me, and then also people not believing in me, that I can show them, well, fuck you, I can do it.
So I'm not sure if it was the same movie, but you mentioned about being hired to write a feature, before, and then you just mentioned that you were hired to write this feature. Are those two different features? And
yeah, that's the same feature.
Okay, same feature. So just wanted to hear about how that came about, and is that amount of money something you can live off of, or is it just a small amount? How does that work?
No, it is not. If it gets sold, then it will be. But, you get something optioned. There's a long back and forth about how much you will get paid, the floor and the ceiling of that, if and when it gets bought. So right now, no, it's an option, but I'm hired an at-will hire to write this. And if it gets bought, then I get paid this specific amount. How this came about is that class that I took at USC. The teacher liked me and recommended me to a producer at Matt Baer Films. And Matt Baer is a longtime producer. His wife, Amy Baer, is head of women in film and did My Best Friend's Wedding. And Matt's made many, many movies. And so I met with him and Colleen Marshall and kind of established a relationship with Colleen where we worked on a different movie. Eventually, they didn't go with that movie. But in 2019, 18, Colleen reached out to me and said, let's work on a project together. I've kept up with you on social media and you seem like you're doing a lot of stuff. Let's meet about some projects. And she had an idea, and I wanted to bring on one of my best friends, and it's been really, really fun. So it's kind of these things what I was saying is I just took the next indicated action. This woman wanted to meet with me. I sent her a script, which I now know was 120 pages. I'm sure there was all these errors in it and stylistic and formatting errors, but I just met with her And she liked me and she kept in touch with me. And I have a manager now, and he's just like, look, just make fans wherever you go, and you don't know who's going to reach out to you. So it was 2-3 years later when she reached out to me again and said she wanted to work with me. So
Alrik, I have no other questions other than the final 5. Do you have a final question to wrap us up?
Yeah, I got a good one. So basically, you're talking about like, you were writing for a very long time, and then you jumped into like make this move to direct and write. Now that you've kind of done a bunch of directing with these shorts, like what is your outlook for the future? Like, do you see yourself as a writer director and that's like an exclusive sort of arrangement? Or are you like, no, I'll write it, whatever, like, or is it a mixture? Like, what are you looking for in your future now that you've kind of like accomplished what you've accomplished?
I mean, I think the goal is to be a writer director, but I also think being flexible is super important. Like, it depends if someone wanted to buy No Overnight Parking, the feature, and me not being attached as director, that I think I have to be open to that. But the reason I did the proof of concept is so that it was a proof of directing, that I could do that if someone wanted to buy it. I don't know if I would direct the wedding movie that I'm writing. I might want to direct something that I didn't write. I'm opening the door, I'm seeing what's next, and then I'm going to see what comes to me and what I go for. But, writing and directing, it would take a lot shorter time for someone to offer me a feature that I didn't write. That's a possibility. And that's my manager is hoping that kind of with No Overnight Parking, I think it's going to look pretty badass. And so hopefully that will get me some directing jobs. I mean, it's more experience. So I'm open to see.
And let's jump off with, what's the first film you made? You talked a little bit about it today. How do you feel about it now?
The first film I made was called Next to You with a 2, because it was about an apartment number 2's in it. I feel proud of it. Yeah. I mean, I think it's super cute, and I'm proud that it's something that I just decided I set out to do, and I did it. And I think it's super sweet. So
what's the best filmmaking advice you've ever received? Everyone
says the same thing, but wear comfortable shoes is what people always say. I did not do that the other day. I wore the wrong shoes for my second day of my shooting, but I don't know. I guess just do it.
What's the worst filmmaking advice you've ever received?
God, I don't know. I've gotten bad advice, but I'm not sure for filmmaking.
Do you have a goal as a filmmaker?
Right now, it's to make the feature of No Overnight Parking. I don't know, win some Oscars, shoot for it,
Yeah. If you go back in time, what's the piece of advice you would give yourself?
Go for it, even if you're scared.
And final question, is making movies hard?
Making movies is so hard. It's so, and my feet, let me tell you, my feet really did hurt a lot on Monday because I wore the wrong shoes.
Tell people how they can support you, like shout out your Twitter account or whatever you want people to do.
Yeah, you can support me if you want to visit my website, megswertlow.com, SWERTLOW. And then my Instagram is megbot3000. That's 2 G's, Megbot, and Meg makes horror films. Oh my God, horror movies, something like that. Or you can see me at various film festivals like the Renegade Film Festival in Atlanta in March.
So Liz, what do you remember from our conversation with Meg?
Not a ton, but I would say the thing that stood out is her confidence and her conviction. She has like a really powerful attitude that really stood out to me. What did you get from it?
Yeah, we hadn't had a filmmaker who hadn't made a feature on the show in a long time. So that was kind of it was sort of to reframe the conversation in a lot of ways. Cause like usually we talk about how they got their first feature made and she's still working on getting her first feature. But then she's done other things that some of our guests haven't done, like had a script optioned, that she's working on, and like had other, opportunities come up. Like she won this ISA thing where her short got funded that she got to make, for I think it was a $20,000 budget or something. So it's these pretty cool things, that not everyone has done. So it was interesting to hear about how she was navigating those successes, but while still trying to build to making her first feature. So it was sort of a very different conversation than the normal conversation that we have. And then, also seemed like she had done a lot of stuff outside of filmmaking before becoming a filmmaker, which I think is relevant to a lot of our listeners. That she was managing a apartment building or something and then found writing, enjoyed that, and then found directing after writing for a number of years. And so it's kind of interesting to hear her trajectory, because it's very different than like your average filmmaker, you know? So, you know, I'm excited to see how her shorts turn out, or the one specifically that she worked with for the ISA. And good luck to Meg on getting her feature done.
Well, we have a new segment this week as well. An article written by Joseph Bernstein called "Look at What We're Doing with Your Money, You Dick." And it's how Peter, is it Thiel or Teal? I thought it was Thiel, but I'm not sure. Backed an anti-woke film festival, which outlines how this all came about, why Peter Thiel would support such a anti-establishment event. I found this article this weekend, and Lex McNaughton shared it on, Lex McNaughton used to be at Film Independent, and now she's at LMU, and she shared it on Twitter. And it was 4 a.m. I think my kid had woke up, and I had to put his pacifier back in his mouth and go back to bed. And I couldn't sleep until I finished this article. I thought it was incredibly fascinating. And I think the core of this article is setting up some sort of common ground between the far right funding projects, art, startups, whatever, and there being some sort of overlap of people who are interested in transgressive or anti-establishment missions or work or projects. I don't even know. It's so vague because it goes into startups, it goes into these little businesses, but it talks about this film festival. And what I really wanted to bring it up on the show because I wanted to ask Alrik about, does it matter where your money comes from? Would you receive money from someone who's fundamentally politically on the other side of what you're doing if you got to make your movie the way you wanted to?
That's the key, right? If you get to make the movie the way you wanted to, and you're not beholden to their agenda, right? Like if you don't have as long as I don't have to put anything in the movie that suggests that I'm supporting any of the causes that they're supporting or any alt-right movements or whatever, then sure. But if it's somehow this is going to be used to fuel that movement and to somehow support any kind of hate mongering in any way or anything that I don't agree with, then I think that I wouldn't want to do that. But it doesn't sound like in this case that it is that, right? That they're just sort of taking the money and doing what they want to do with it. You know,
it's a film festival, right? But at the same time, if you're selling tickets, if you're promoting events, that money is going to go back into the coffer of the person who funded it. So that money is always going to come back. And I think what was exciting to me is that I had never identified an overlap between liberals and conservatives regarding transgressive art, because I love offensive art. It's one of my favorite things to support. Lars von Trier is one of my favorite directors, and he's really out there. And it made me feel oh, great, we could find some common ground. There's Purple film, where conservatives and liberals could come together and put their art into the world. But at the same time, there's complexities beyond it that are outside of my Pollyanna way of looking at it, right? It's what are the economics that you're supporting? Yeah,
it's tough, because like you said, if you are gonna, take money from somebody like that and then, make your movie, and then if it is a humongous hit, then the money goes back to them and then supports them and whatever they want to do. But at the same time, you could argue, well, that this movie that wouldn't exist without their help now exists in the world, and maybe it's net positive. It's got a net positive impact, despite bringing in money for somebody who it has beliefs that you disagree with. It's very complicated. It's also really interesting, this whole alt-right, liberal, sort of
so interesting.
Mixing. Because I feel there's a lot of liberals who are all kind of on the anti-vaccination side of things, and this is something I've seen in my own friend group and my own community here in the Bay Area, which is the most left that you can be, basically. And it's funny how some of these people who have these beliefs are now kind of getting swept up into alt-right movements that support their need for these anti-vax sort of beliefs and I guess protests and everything. And then suddenly they're supporting something that they believe in because that's one of their core values, right? But then they go out to these protests, these marches, or they even go to these websites or these blogs or listen to these podcasts, And then suddenly they're now wrapped into this alt-right movement that has so much other terrible things wrapped up with it that they don't necessarily support, or they don't believe in. But like the outward view is that they now support these things because they are part of it, you know, for this one thing that they agree upon. And then now they're supporting these agencies and these companies and these, you know, movements that are now doing terrible other things too as part of their agenda. So it's really terrible, and it's really scary to me to see that happen to like some friends of mine, family, and then just people in my area in general, you know? And that's what, when you know, brought this article and I was reading it, it's like I kind of thought of that. Like it's like the mixing of like, you know, alt left and alt right. And it's like they go so far in either direction. It's like they kind of meet, you know, on the other side in a weird way, you know?
Yeah, because like I always think about it when I watch Joe Bob Briggs, because Joe Bob Briggs actually rubs a lot of liberals the wrong way, because he goes on these rants that aren't the most PC rants, I would say. They're not sanitized. It's just like ridiculous things that come out of his mouth, but they're always incredibly charming and well researched and idiosyncratic. And so I'm along for the ride. And he always says he wants to have an open door, and everyone who wants to, you know, there's a mutant fam who tune into a show on Shudder. By the way, Joe Bob Briggs was on our show. That's the only reason why I mentioned him, but not everyone knows him the way we do. So I'm like, oh, I have to contextualize Joe Bob Briggs. He's a horror host who has his own show on Shudder. I always think of him as like, you know, a purple figure where he could bring together liberals and conservatives. And they always talk about like Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton is a great unifier too, where she's from the South, but a lot of liberals are drawn to her and flock to her because of her stance on individual freedom and creativity. So there's like the pitfalls of this, where the conflating of political factions, but there's also, again, the part that I love about it, which is like, you know, the John Waters aspect of it, which is like, let's get rid of our sacred cows. Let's nothing is sacred. Let's keep on pushing the boundaries of art. And that's what excites me. But then I just can't quite reconcile the ethics of who are you getting into bed with when you find funders. At the same time, you know, it's like Sundance Institute, Tribeca Film Institute. I mean, like all of these big funders and individual financiers, no one's going to be completely saintly in their behavior, in their background. So ultimately, can we collaborate with people on the other side of the fence politically to create boundary pushing art? Like that's really interesting to me. And I hope that doesn't get discounted as idealistic. But anyway, this article was nuts, and I didn't summarize it well, but I encourage everyone to read it. Yeah,
I feel like, you know, it's going to change. Everyone's going to have their own opinion on what that means, right? Like, and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Like, what is an okay time to take money from a source like that, and what's a not okay time to take money? Or is it never okay? You know, like everyone is going to have to make up their own minds on what they feel comfortable with and what they can live with. And I think, honestly, to me, it's really like what you do with it is what's the most important, and how you represent your art or the cause that you're supporting with that money. I think that's probably the most important thing. Like if you're like getting a bunch of money from Peter Thiel, and then like you're keeping a bunch for yourself, and then you're using just a fraction of it to like, you know, do your art thing, then, you know, you're just as bad as anybody else. But if you're taking that money and you're like, you know, using it properly and like, you know, actually making it about the art and not about like a way for you to gain wealth, then I think, you know, maybe you're I don't know, maybe that's better. I'm not sure. It's hard to say without looking at it case by case, I guess, you know.
It's interesting.
All right. Well, we also have this week a couple listener questions to answer. I know we can get through one. Maybe we'll get through two. Let's see how it goes.
Okay.
So first, we've got one from friend of the show, Carl E. Richter. The subject reads, curious. Then he says, asking for a friend, ... Is there such a thing as an agent who will rep a director based on their short films, naturally with the goal of features? So, what do you think, Liz? What do you think about that question?
Of course. I mean, that's how a lot of people get representation, is they submit really solid short films. They get into high profile genre or mainstream film festivals. And then agents and managers see the potential. You know, we've had agents and managers talk about how people will send them short films and then they'll go, oh, there's something there. I want to work with that person. I want to help them develop that into a feature. So yes, short film distribution or festival releases, or even just having a short film that you believe in to use as a sample can help garner you representation. I'm like wondering if there's another part of this question, but it seems very clear to me that yes, this is very possible.
I would say it's possible, but I would also put this in the lottery ticket category. Like, I think it's not that common, right? Like, I mean, how many people do you know who's gotten representation off a short film?
I don't have a lot of friends with representation. Well, okay. I mean, there's like tiers of my friends, right? And like, I have like the high profile director friends and they all have representation. And then there's the schlubs like me who do not have representation. So I would say in our circle, we do not have representation, whether it's from a short or feature or anything. I think just good representation is hard to find.
This is something that people say and I hear, but I don't believe it. I really just think it happens like once in a while. Like I don't think it's a regular norm. I don't think it's something that you should expect. I don't think it's something even maybe you should shoot for. I mean, maybe if you feel like, oh yeah, I want to like go out there and whatever and sell my wares and like try to get a manager or an agent with some shorts, go for it. But I would say, like, you know, the thing that you need to have in order to go with that is it has to have millions upon millions of hits. And in which case, if it's got millions upon millions of views, someone's probably already going to have reached out to you, most likely.
Okay,
you know?
Wait, let me add the caveat. So it's either high profile film festival or viral on an open source internet, you know, platform, or has name cast that reflects that you have relationships that are very powerful that could help you along in your career.
Or you already have the relationships and you make a short and you send it to your relationships and then they help you, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think any of this is like unless you like have something special about your short, like the millions upon millions of views or the high profile film festival, I think it's really, really hard for you to be noticed and without your own connections, you know?
Well, yeah. So, okay, 100% I agree. But I think if someone screens your short, they're screening it because they heard about it somewhere or someone recommended it to them. It's not as if you, just like you're saying, you're most likely not going to get representation if you do a cold reach out to an agent or manager and say, look at the short I made. That's unlikely.
Right. Yeah, it's got to be like we always talk about it. It's like the recommendation. It's that little bit of like, ooh, this is the real deal. This is the secret find, the diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
Like someone else has to do that for you in order for that to become a situation. And usually that's going to be somebody that you already know personally or that somebody in your network, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like, you know, if you just make a short film, like you can expect to like, you know, be batting off at managers and agents. It's like you have to already have like the kind of connections to those managers and agents like through your own personal network. And then maybe like if you feel comfortable playing that card, it's like now you can send them the short film you made and hope that they take a look at it. But like I think what's probably more valuable is making the feature and then sending them the feature with all the awards and the distribution and the whatever. Like you're going to have a much better chance with that than with the short, I think.
I mean, it just ultimately depends where you go, what reach or what heights you get to with either. Like, you know, a mediocre feature with lower tier film festivals is just as unvaluable to a rep as a mediocre short with low tier film festivals.
Yeah, I agree. Pretty much in 100% agreement here. But I feel like it's like it does happen, but it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's not like a surefire, easy road.
Right,
Just
but
like
the question made it seem like that there was no pipeline to that. And it's like there is a pipeline. It just doesn't happen to us.
It just doesn't happen to 99% of people. Yes. It's the 1% that maybe have that opportunity come through. And that 1% usually has, connections, high profile film festivals, tons and tons of views, something. Do you want to answer this question or should we go on and just end the show?
Let's save it for next week. We'll save Lucas Culshaw's question for next week.
Okay, sounds good.
But you can always send us a question, comment, or suggestion to podcast@makingmoviesishard.com. I swear we won't always push them off to the next week. We will answer them. If you like the show, you can leave us a review on iTunes. Finally, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at MMIH Podcast, YouTube at Making Movies is Hard Podcast. We want to shout out to the International Screenwriters Association, which is an organization designed to connect writers with filmmakers through the programs they offer. head on over to www.networkisa.org to sign up for free. Thank you to Meg Swertlow for coming on the show, to Shayna Weber from the ISA for setting this up. Thanks to our editor, Jeff Freimuth, who is a hero of heroes, for doing the editing. Our producer, Eric Toms, who is an equal hero of heroes, for being awesome and producing us. Thanks to all of you for listening, and talk to y'all next week.
That was a rambling craziness.
It's fine. It's fine. We did it. It's recorded.
We did it. Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Apologies to you, Jeff.